we wake up and we treat the pandemic like the flu, and we get back to something resembling the normality of Florida, and we put this behind us, and we don't get too upset about January 6th, and we don't get too vengeful about the Democrats and the radical left, and we elect someone half sensible to run the Republicans, and we carefully weave our way through to a peaceful future. Let's pray for that, because the alternative is pretty damn dismal. And I don't think we have to have the alternative. You know, we talked about Trump earlier. Here's my dilemma with Trump, one of many. He's beating the election was stolen drum pretty damn hard. And I look at that as an outsider, again, because I'm Canadian, and I think, well, you Americans, you've been split 50-50 for like 5 decades, like right down the middle, eh? And there's always election trouble, because no system is 100% perfect. Maybe there's like a 1%, 2% margin of crookedness, something like that. And you're probably really not going to get rid of that. Maybe you can maneuver carefully to keep it so that it's never any more than 1 or 2%. But to get rid of that last bit of malfeasance and deception and corruption would take such a heavy hand that that would become worse than the problem. And that's a real problem when you're split 50-50, because small election irregularities can throw the whole election. Okay, so it isn't obvious precisely what can be done about that. But the election was stolen narrative, I think it's weak for a variety of reasons. The first is, it's pretty whiny. Like, why didn't you win with 5% margin then? So how do you know this isn't your fault? And you think the Republicans aren't gerrymandering congressional districts? Because they are. And so it's not obvious that even if it is the case that there is substantive election fraud, that it's all from one side. And so there's that. And then, you're sure that's the message you want to be sending people? That they shouldn't have faith in their most fundamental institution? You might be right, but it's in your interest for that to be true. And so that's a moral hazard. And then, well, what happens when you retake the House? Because that's what's going to happen. I think the Democrats are going to get stomped in the upcoming election. Are those elections somehow valid, but yours wasn't? And so why magically when the Republicans get elected, that's honest, but when they don't, it's not? And so doesn't that take the wind out of your story? It's like, well, it was stolen. Well, you have the House and the Senate. How do you account for that? So that, to me, that's going to weaken that narrative. Trump is capitalizing on anger. He's using the election issue as a means to an end. And he may believe it, but it doesn't matter because it's a weak story, especially when the Democrats lose the House. It's a weak story. So it's not gonna, it doesn't have any momentum. But then it's worse than that, because I also think, and I've talked to lots of Republicans about this, is that the best story you've got? You got tradition on your side. You got the truth as an adventure on your side. You got belief in truth on your side. That's been abandoned by the radical left. You've got belief in science on your side. You've got responsibility on your side. You've got the fundamental purpose of higher education on your side. You can't conjure up a better story for Americans than the election was stolen with all that on your side. That's just not very impressive. And I have sympathy for politicians in general in the United States. Congress people have very hard jobs. It's not a job I would like. I don't think it's a pleasant job. They spend a lot of their time fundraising, 25 hours a week, on the phone, out of their congressional offices, because otherwise they're not supported by their party leadership. 40% of them sleep in their offices when they go to Washington. They don't even have apartments. Those that do usually have little bitty apartments. Their families aren't there because it's hard to get families to move to Washington now with dual career families. They don't have much of a social group. They have to run for their job every 2 years. This is not a, plus they're under attack all the time and they're micromanaged and microscheduled. So.
But I'm curious, what point are you trying to make? Are you trying to make a point with Trump saying the fact that, you know, election was stolen? Because that's exactly what Hillary Clinton's position was for 4 years. that elections were
it's
stolen from her, right?
No better when she does it.
Oh no, I'm not even. What I'm trying to say is, I looked at it as a weak position. That,
It is
hey,
a weak position.
It is a weak position she
whiny.
was taking. I think, okay, but
That's the worst of it. It's
but-
like,
but
really?
where are you going with this? Are you going with the
Tell a
fact
better
that
story.
tell a better story if you want to get reelected? Is that
No. The way to re-election is through a better story, but that's not the reason to tell it. The reason to tell it is because you believe it. And for the first time in my life, really, I believe this to be the case, conservatives really have something to sell to young people. And they can sell the meaning of responsibility.